today our focus is on MVC core with entity framework. That would be our focus, right? And yesterday we looked into environmental variables, right? So yesterday we had a look into environmental variables. So today what we'll do is, so let us go ahead and create a simple MVC core application with inside that, we can have entity framework core, right? And in that we will use environmental variables overriding. Right now, remember, your application should be Docker compliant. You cannot just go and take application from app settings. You need to write some code for it, right? So, so just quickly, I guess all these files I will upload. You can see every time I have taken a training, right? Whatever I have done here, I put it out here. For example, simple IaaS hosting. This has the Docker file with the code. Simple IaaS hosting with new web application. IaaS hosting with .NET code, with Kestrel, with simple compose file, with this, like this one is now Docker with EF code, right? So we'll see this now. So please note that every lab I have done, I've tried to create a folder. In that, I have just tried to put the whole solution and the file. So please, when you're seeing this tutorial, please try to follow the same, okay? So let me open up and let me tell you that what kind of changes I have done in this. Let me also open up my SQL server out here. So first, let us test locally our EF core. Now I'm assuming that everybody has done EF core out here. Everybody understands migrations, add-migration, update-database. Can everyone just quickly put down saying that, yes, sir, we understand it, so that, yes, all the code will be available. I hope everybody is doing add-migration, update-database. You understand code first. Please say yes or no. Right, yes, I can see yes. Okay, in case if someone is not aware of it, then please go and see our EF core tutorials. Please go and see our projects, the last trainings we have taken. Chalo, good. So I'll not be taking this. So here it is. This is application out here, and we will be using this application. So first, let us test locally. Now look at this, what I've done out here, right? In case anyone is no out there, because I can see majority of them have said yes, yes. I can see no, one or two. I will try to make you understand, but I will not try to go in detail. So very quickly, guys, see what happens is, so here I have done a small sample code, small sample code. Just delete this migrations, right? So what I have done here, so code first means what? Very, very quickly, 5 minutes. We have 6 or 7 people who are pinged. We don't know code first. Very quickly, I'll see what happens in code first. In code first, you write first your classes and your objects, and then looking at those classes and the objects and the relationships, he will create the database. So this is called as code first, right? So for example, you can see I'm writing here the customer class. It has an ID, it has a name, right? And now what I will do is I will go ahead and I will write the mapping saying that for this customer class, you have to create this DBL customer. This is called as code first. Definitely, when you have a one-to-many relationship, when you have many-to-many relationship, this code becomes complex. But what we do is we create our code first and we write, and then we go and use some commands. By using those commands, we go and we create the tables, right? Now, very quickly, now a little bit of thought process from the way of how we want to go live in Docker, right? So you can see this is out here, and in the app setting.json file, you will put down the connection string. You can see this is my connection string, and in my SQL server, there is some DB out here. So some DB. Now remember, in this some DB, that tables might have got created. So what I'll do is I'll just get rid of these 2 tables for now, just to check if my code is working. It should be working. I've tested it, but so here is the DB. Now what you do in your code first, so you have written this customer class, you have written this mapping. Also what I've done in the startup.cs, I have also provided this small code out here saying that take up that connection string, whatever is there in the app settings, and go ahead and create the database, right? This is good till here. But now remember I said, when we go inside the Docker, we don't want to take the variables from the app settings.json. So what we want here is something like this. If I'm in development out here, when I'm using this app settings, it is good. I will use this. But when I go in Docker, if I specify environmental variables, then this connection string should be overridden. I repeat this. the way I want my code to run is, I want to say that, okay, like if I'm in development and if I say use this connection string, use it. But if there is an environmental variable provided, then you should override it, right? So for that, you need to put through 2-3 lines of code out here. I will just give you a short brief. So you can see here, it says add JSON file for the configurations, add the JSON file, right? But you can see I'm also adding the environmental variables. I will just comment this code out here and we'll see this later. Okay. Remember, this is a very important part which I'm talking here. This one, you should have this, or else in Docker, it is difficult, right? So what will happen now? Look at this. So in my computer, now this is my some DB out here. So what I can do is, in my computer, I have in my computer, if I create an environmental variable, look at this. So if I create an environmental, I've already created it with the same name, SQL connection. You can see I've created SQL connection, right? So now what happens is, if I don't have this here, if I don't have this, right, this is not here, it will take it from the environmental variables. If I have this, it will take it from here, right? I hope everybody has followed this. Let me know, guys, this code is understood. I'm not typing the code. Add environmental variables. I will be giving you the source code, right? So the point here is that, like a fallback, if the connection string is present, he will take it from there. And if the environmental variable, so you can see now what I've done is, I've just, let me test this. So this is here, okay, and hide floating controls, and I'll say build, right? So this is nice. Everything builds out here. So now what should happen is, even if I don't have that connection string, it should work. Now remember, to create the classes, to create the files, to create the tables, right? We use something called as add-migration and update-database for people who are new to entity framework very quickly. So what we do is that we fire certain commands. Now remember, again, people who are new to entity framework, what I've done here, I have added 2-3 packages. I have added EF core, I have added SQL server, and I have added the tools. So these are the 3 NuGet packages which you have to add. The EF core has the mappings. The SQL server says that you are targeting SQL server, and tools has those commands, add-migration and update-database. Very easy. 3 things we need. Okay. Now, very quickly, guys, I would like to also stress the biggest benefit of Code First is that I can change my database very easily. For example, if you remember when we were using ADO.NET, in your code itself, you had using SQL client. Means you are tied up with SQL server. Here, what happens is, you say that you look at my class and you create the tables. You say like that, right? So with that, what happens is, now if I go and if I refer here Postgre, it will go and create a database in Postgre. Your code will start working in Postgre without any change, right? If I go and if I refer here Oracle, right? If I go and refer here Oracle, I need to make 2 changes. I have to refer here Oracle or Postgre, and in my context file, I have to say here, in a context or SQL server, in my startup file, I have to say here, use SQL server or use Postgre or use Oracle. That's it. And your code then starts working with Oracle or something. So this is the only thing why we come to Code First, right? The other things, what people feel like, it is maintainable, it is good and all that. But the biggest thing is that you can just, if you think that somebody is asking you too much money, right? You can just switch your context and go to something which is free, right? Okay, so this is it. Now, with all that, now I'll be using my tools, right? So I'll go here. Remember, at this moment, nothing has been created. And remember, we have done a mapping here. Customer class should map to TBL customer, right? Very easy. So I'll say here, so I'll go to NuGet package manager and we will say here add-migration. Now remember, add-migration goes and creates the code. So I'll say add-migration version 1, right? And I will say update-database, right? So you can keep adding, version 1, version 2. Now remember, when you add a migration, it will actually create the migration code for you. You can see here, he has created a migration code on how your tables will be created. It says that it should create an identity, or it has to create this as a primary key, whatever, right? But it has not created the table still in my SQL server. That has still not been created. So for that, we have to fire the second command, update-database. So when you change your classes, add-migration version 1, version 2, version 3, you keep doing it. Then you say update-database, which actually goes and makes a physical change to your SQL server. So this is the way we work, right? Now you can see one of the important things which you can, okay, let us check if he has created a tables. So you can see here, he has created tables. He has taken the value from the environmental variable. Please understand. This value he has taken from the environmental variable. Now let us try to understand some philosophy out here. So when I create my Docker file, if you look at our Docker, it has two processes of creation. One is it creates an image and then it creates a container or an instance of it, right? So the right place to create this to run this add-migrations or update-database is in the container, not during the Docker file process. I think this is very much understood. During the Docker file process, we will just create the image. But when we run, we say, run now this instance on that SQL server. He should go and run it on that SQL server. Run this instance. So it is a good practice. It is a good practice that rather than going and firing these commands from outside, you should actually write the code inside in your startup.cs. I'm just trying to talk about, some of the different ways of executing migrations when you are in a Docker environment, right? So in other words, what I'm saying is, it would be good if you put a code, something like this in your startup.cs and you say, we will run the migrations like this. So look at this simple code out here. What it is saying is that go and get the customer DB context and say database.migrate. So what will happen out here is when this application runs, it will take the connection string from the environmental variable, and in the startup.cs, it will go and it will execute this code, right? This is a second way of doing it, right? So see, there are two ways of, multiple ways of doing it. One is what you can do when you do a Docker run or when you do a Docker compose, when you create an instance, you can run these commands, add-migration, update-database, point number one. Second, which I like personally, is putting in the code itself, right? Third one, which many people do, is what they do is that they create a separate exe. They create a separate code, and that code actually goes and executes and does the migrations. So they don't put it as a part of this. What they do is that as soon as the Docker, this is running, the Docker, you say Docker run, in the compose file, they say go and run this exe, and that exe has only the DB context towards your models to go and create it. So you can, there are three ways. What you like, it depends, or what is your scenario, it depends. Right? At this moment, I will use this, right? So let us go and check if this code works. So what I'll do is now, let us try to do the migration, not from the command. Let us try to see that if our code works from the from our MVC code, right? So I'm going to go and run this, right? Very simple MVC application. It does nothing. And there it is. Remember, he's taking the value from the environmental variables. I've put a small log here saying that so you can see it is taking those values. And now what has happened is, you will see that he has created a EF migration history. Where is my table? He has not created my table because I did not use that table. Please understand, at this moment, if you see, he should have actually, let me see my code, right? So database.migrate, customer DB context. I don't know why he did not go and run my, let's check what happened here. Because he should have ran the migration. Must be my code has some mistakes, or so that runs, and what happens? Why is my table not created? It is not created because of my stupidity. So it is not created because right. So I can see some very because, can anyone guess? It's out here in my code. No, because here I have to expose out this DB set. My mistake. So he was not able to find out this table. See, until this, that migrate command, was not getting an idea that which are the tables internally. I feel so. That is my mistake. So let us say hide floating controls and build this solution. Okay. So first thing is, let me delete this. Remember, don't delete like this in production. Remove hyphen migration version 2, remove hyphen migration version 1, go step by step. Don't try to, this I'm doing it because at this moment, this is just learning. So try to use the remove command. So now let us see what happens. Because my tables were not exposed, so it did not create that. Sure. Okay, leave it for now. I don't want to get, I think, when I go and add a record to that table, if I go and start adding records, then only he will create it. I feel so. That should have. Okay. Understood. This code will be fixed later on. Let me not get into R&D at this moment. Just right. Database.migrate. I think there is a database ensure created, or that is if you want the database also to be created, then this is the code. This will ensure that it is created. And if it is no means, if I say like this, let me see. If let us say you did not create some DB, if you did not create some DB, he will ensure that this database is also created. Remember, some DB is out here. So let us see what is happening. I don't know why it is not. So now what will happen is he will make sure that your database is also created. If it is not existing, that even the database creation process will happen. So here, it took some time. Can you see that it took some time to run? Because some DB is here. Now he created the DBL customer, but it is very sad. Yeah, now he has created first time. And if I go and start making changes, he will add the migrations also. Sure. Good. I can see he has created the table, but remember that the migration table is also important. So this, I'm just talking about, this is the overall thought process. You have to first understand the thought process. Now with all that, with all this now, if you would like to now go to online to our Docker environment and run this, right? So how do we work now? So very easy. We'll use our same Docker file. So what I've done, guys, I've already copied the code also. Please note, I have also copied the code here. And so this is here. You can see I have some containers. I'll just delete all this. So I've already copied the code. My SQL server is also running, right? My SQL server is also running. So we will go and we'll create the image. So now remember, now when we are online, remember now I don't have that database, create database, ensure that code is not there. So what I've done is I have copied it here. This code is all out here. And let us go and create an image of it. So I think there is an image, but I would like to go and create an image of that once again. Right? Now, before you create the image, remember your SQL server is now running out here. You can see that is your SQL server. Remember in the last class, I showed you how to go and create SQL Docker by using two ways, by using the Docker, by using the database, by using the Linux one, you can just say Docker run, or if you have Windows, you will use the PowerShell commands and you will run it. So that again, I have ran it. And this SQL Server instance out here, which you see, if you see, there is a SQL image, and this is the SQL instance. And you can see to this SQL instance, we have this database, right? So what we'll do is we will use this, we will create a DB here, some DB, and let us see that if that, when our application runs, he goes and he creates the databases out here. Remember, you can also do like this. If you think that, no, like this is too much heavy, you can also go and execute scripts. Like some of our old school people would say that, no, I want to do like this. I want to go and create a alter script, which has to go into production. And then I want to do this, right? So very much possible you can do that also. You can run scripts also. Right, so there it is. Now I'll go and I'll create a database, just something DB123, right? And in my environment, the first thing which I have to do out here, remember, in the Docker Compose file, we provide our environment. So in our environment, I just want to make sure I go and I say localhost. Remember, you can either give localhost or you can also give the IP address of your SQL server, right? We'll see how to see the IP address, right? But here now I will say go and create the database in DB123. So this environmental variable will run when we use Docker Compose. Okay. So this is all set here. This is the command, right? Okay. So clear screen. So now first thing, we will go ahead and we will build that MVC core image, right? Remember this MVC core image installs IIS, it installs .NET runtime, it installs all that things which we saw, right? And after that, what we will do, we will just run Docker Compose, and inside Docker Compose, you have this DB123. So when we run the application first time, it should actually go and show our TBL customer or migrations table also, right? So guys, this is the overall process. I'm just giving you overall hindsight of how to go and create or run a Docker MVC core with SQL Server. So if you have any questions until this runs, you can see it takes time. We know that, right? So any questions, guys, on the overall process? Yes. So I will just write down here. Let me, before I take up the questions. So what are the things, I'll just write down here, what we have to do as a step. Okay. So as a steps. Okay. What steps we have to do? First, this can't I shift. Step 1. Make sure that your MVC core application uses, MVC core DB connection string uses environmental variable. Point number 1. Make sure that the migration code does not run through add-migration. See, this is just as a thought. I'm not saying it's a best practice or a good practice or something, but what I feel is that it should run through a code, some other code, right? But not as a part of the image creation. Don't do that. It would hamper you, right? And you can't, right? During when you create the image, you don't have SQL Server. See, when you create the image, we don't have SQL Server. The process should be first, the SQL Server instance should be created, and then the MVC core, right? So definitely there is no way, but even in the Docker run, don't do it. Do it when your code runs. So decide your policy when you want to create the DB. Remember, I showed you various ways. In this, we are doing through code. In our demo, we are doing through code. Okay. Then in the Docker Compose file, please make sure that you go and you change that environmental variable to whatever it is, right? So you create the image which is happening, and in the Docker Compose file, when you go to Docker Compose, make change to the local connection string, whatever is there at that time. Good. So this is how it is, right? So let me know, guys, any questions? I'll go to the questions out here. Okay. 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 So I have some questions. I have some suggestions as well as questions here, right? So remember, I talked about various ways of doing it, and thank you, Bhavnesh, for the understanding. If you have large changes, absolutely. How to do update-database in production? I am also into that thought that if it is a very large change, using an EXE is the right way, right? You have a separate process to update that database, right? So I agree to that, right? Integrated connection string will not work. Possible. Let us check out. They are possible because I am not in the same computer. Very, very good. A very, very good input given by Bhavnesh here. This code will not work. You are right. And I did not test it, guys. Let me tell you. Actually, I was testing till the end, but I did not test that. Integrated connection string will not work, which is right. You know why it will not work? Because there are two different Docker instances. There are two different Docker instances. You can see that thing has been created. So they are not belonging to the same Active Directory. Now to create them into an Active Directory, that is right. I should have done SQL. I should have done a SQL connection string. So we have SQL authentication and fine. So must be I can use a SQL connection string out here, but I don't know what is the password. Very, very good thought Bhavnish has given out here. So before we run that, I hope this is understood by everyone, huh? That you cannot. So what we'll do is we'll go and we'll create a user out here for SQL. So let's do that. SA SQL login, the favorite SA who never dies. So we will. I also have here. No, I need a username. Username. Good question. This is not good. Okay. No. Actually, my question is that what would be the Windows login over here? And this is into Docker. So I will have to create a login, which I did not do. I should have. When I created that, I should have. So chalo, we'll see what will happen. I am not sure. But you are right, Bhavnesh, it will not work. Nothing will be updated out here because this is not a let's see. Okay, chalo, we'll see that later on, guys. You are right actually, but that will have a problem. Also, what I'll do, I will run my instance. So remember, to create the instance, you will use the docker compose command, right? The docker compose, what it will do is it will actually go and create an instance. And as Bhavnesh has said, that this code will not run because I am not in the same this one. So if I try to run this, let us try to do that. We have already the instances created. My mistake. So application will run. Application. Yeah, you can see here. It is giving an error. I think previously also when I ran before you guys were coming in, that did not click to me. Now remember here he is trying to validate to that authentication and this and this. And if I go to the std out message, he will definitely tell me that. So if I go and see the event out here, let us see. If I go and see in the events in my container. The events. Open terminal. You can see that is a connection string in the environmental variable, which is right. Looks to be right. But in the log file, he is not shown anything. But I'm sure that when I run this, it should show something. But definitely that is the exception, which is understood. We have to go and enable the log and all that into that app config, and then only I will see it out here. But definitely that is the error, very much noted, right? Okay, so now I have to go and create a user out here. And you know what? It is, I should have done it when I created the SQL Server instance. I should have added a user at that time. I did not add it. Now it is becoming difficult from here because getting a username would be difficult. So leave it, guys, for now, right? But I hope that at least the basic process is understood. Thank you, Bhavnesh, for that. I thought that this code will just work and I did not test it. But you are right. Both are different instances. Both don't belong to the same AD. This code will not work. What a shame thinking on me. How that thing did not click till the end to me. Okay. But remember, this code perfectly works offline. So it perfectly works out here. So I'm sure that it is a matter that we have to just enable the SA, give the environmental variable of SA, and it should be done. Okay. So guys, any questions at least on the basic process? Let us go through the questions. Okay. I don't have any essay, right? Okay. Let me see. Hang on here. So how do we go and see the IP address of your, okay, let me take from the top. What is the benefit of using SQL Server on Docker versus Azure SQL Server? So what is the benefit of using SQL Server on Azure versus SQL Server on, and is it only the cost? See, first thing, when you are saying that in Docker, if you're using SQL Server, it is just like saying that you are using how do you say, a fully bought SQL Server. It is not pay as you go. You must have bought a license of the SQL Server and you are installing in Docker. When you're using Azure SQL Server, right, it is pay as you go. Here means, you will only pay for what you use. In this case, actually, it is a proper SQL Server edition which you need to install, right? So it is like saying this is on-premise SQL Server. It is just that it is running inside Docker, and this one is actually SQL Server on cloud. Means you will actually go out here to the portal, and in portal you will actually go and you will create a SQL Server here. It is all online, and you will use those DTUs to pay. So you will be billed on how much process is there. So you don't have upfront cost here. When you're buying SQL Server in premise, right, on premise, you have to pay that $6,000, $7,000, whatever for whatever core, and it is all yours for your lifetime. But here it is not like that. Here it is like, until you use it, I will take money from you, so you don't have an upfront cost. So both of them are very different. To answer your question, you can't compare both of them, right? Right. So why is Docker Compose we have mentioned in the data while there is a separate, okay, let's check this question. Why in Docker Compose file we have data source equal while there is a separate container for this? So don't we have to provide? You can provide IP address also. Absolutely. See, please note, if you see my SQL Server, I have connected through an IP address. Look at that. So if I want, I can provide that IP address as well. So you can go and you can provide 172 and this, and it should perfectly work. At this moment, it is in the same host machine, right? And to see the IP address, you will say Docker inspect, right? So there was one question out here. That's how to go and see. You will say Docker inspect. So again, all the commands I have listed out here. Please note in this Docker help file. So you will just say inspect and the container name. So like whatever is a container name, Docker inspect MVC core 5. For example, here, our container name is of SQL Server is SQL instance 1. So you will say out here, Docker inspect SQL instance 1, right? And you should get the IP address out here. You can see this is my IP address, and that IP address I used over here to connect to my SQL Server. So you can definitely provide this IP address. Okay. Right. Let us go to the next questions out here. So that I hope that answered. How do we access manually? And okay, there's one more question here. So how do we, right? Do I have to pay license? Do I have to pay license cost for SQL Server? Absolutely. See, if you're using SQL, license cost does not change. Must be, you can just definitely for, I don't know for Docker if they have some special cost, but they will charge you. It is not that you are running inside Docker, you will get SQL Server free. You can get SQL Express with that free. If you want SQL Express, 10 GB hard disk running on one core. I think you cannot have more than 10 concurrent connections. That you can put it for free, but other ones not. Can I use Developer Edition? No, Developer Edition is only one connection. Oh, nahi chalega bhai. It is only for us to learn. Don't abuse it. Huh? So you have to buy Enterprise Edition if you want to, or use Express if you want to just use it for free. In that also free means what? Huh? Again, there is a policy in that. Remember, free means that how many people are working in the organization and etc. Depending on how much is your turnover, then only SQL Express is free, or else again there is a cost attached. Even for Express, I have seen that for Express in India, Microsoft has taken money for it, for big organization who were running Express for free. So it is not free, huh? Very important. These licenses are very difficult. Only when the audit happens, you come to know. For this, what I should do, so you see, you can go to KPMG or some organization out here. Now remember, I don't want to talk here about the licenses. The best would be to go and buy online from Microsoft directly. Don't get involved with the local Microsoft. I don't want to say anything on record out here, but it becomes very difficult to deal with the local partners. So once they come to know that you're buying licenses, they will ask for each and every license. So it is better that you go online, shop online in Microsoft, go to a genuine website. I'm sure that Microsoft also sells a product directly. Take a proper key which you like, take a Microsoft subscription, buy the key and use it, right? But you need to understand, again, how the SKU works, how the keys work. Or else, no, you don't want to get into any jhanjat, use SQL Azure. Online, pay as you go, upgrades automatically. All that benefits are there. Okay.